Good morning. When I knew that my father died, I immediately started thinking about his funeral because I knew that I wanted to speak. I didn't know exactly what I was going to say, but I knew that I would figure it out. My dad was a wing it person. He prepared, but he just winged it, and it always worked out. I thought that I would share a few stories about my dad, what he liked, and what his mission was. 4 years ago, today, my dad took me to a Garth Brooks concert. I remember being so mad because he took my mom instead of me the first time. I was really mad because I liked Garth Brooks more than my mom, so why would you take her? But a few weeks before today, he told me I was kind of mad at him, and I expressed that, and he kind of mumbles on his breath, "You're not going to be mad at me when I take you in a few weeks." And I kind of heard it, and I go, What? Take me where? He goes, ice cream. I'm like, nah. So we went to Garth Brooks. We had a really big sign, and we were very close to the stage. I remember moments like this, and many others, because they were moments and times that I spent with my father. My father also loved airplanes. He had that app on his phone where he could shine it or point it up to an airplane, and he could tell you exactly what airplane that was, how many people were on that airplane, when it was made, the model, everything about it. A few weeks ago, when the flyover came by, we came here and sat outside on the grass and watched it. Now that I know how much my father loved airplanes, I'm going to save up money to try to get pilot's lessons so I can be a pilot and maybe give my services, if I'm good enough, to the police department or the military. My dad's favorite day to work was definitely Christmas, because even though he might have not been with us, he was with other families. He also got to see how much he impacted everyone else's life during Operation Rudolph. This was his favorite day because he got to be out with the community that he loved and gave his life to protect. My dad's least favorite day to work was definitely the 4th of July, for 2 reasons. One, he loved the 4th of July, so it really made him angry that he couldn't be with us, which I found it funny that every year he always worked on that day. Just a coincidence. The second reason my dad hated the 4th of July was because that was one of the busiest nights of the year, because you would always get shots fired calls, and they wouldn't be gunshots, they would be fireworks, and that made him so mad. My dad's mission in life was to change the way people look at police officers. He did this by doing the right thing even when no one is watching, which in this day and age, we all have this, so everyone is watching. They turn on at different times and record all different angles. He made sure he was always involved. He worked as an SRO, Oak Park Mall Cop, which we called him Paul Blart. He was an Explorer Advisor, Field Training Officer, and President of the Fraternal Order of Police. He also always made sure to give out police badges to little children and try and beat them in any sport that they were playing, which never happened. My dad's greatest accomplishment was being elected FOP president. I remember when I ran for school council in 3rd grade, we had just gotten the email saying that I made secretary, and my dad said, "I am proud of you because I ran for everything when I was little and never made it, but I put my heart and time into running for president, and just like you, work pays off." This was his greatest accomplishment because through the FOP, he was able to serve and do what he loved. He did Shoot for the Gold, Shop with a Cop, and many other things to help the community. Now some things my dad loved. The Chiefs. My dad loved the Chiefs and every other sports team. He, like many of you, he loved to see that no matter what was going on in the world, no matter your background, race, religion, or even who you were. For 3 or 4 hours, you all came together and had one common goal, and that was to clap, boo, yell, shout, and eat a hot dog and watch a sports game together. Hand sanitizer. It might seem weird, but this was one of his greatest accomplishments. I was with my dad when we went to pick up 164-ounce bottles of hand sanitizer. We drove down to Kansas City and passed that car vending machine thing that I didn't even know was real. I thought it was just something they had on the commercials. When we arrived, we backed up and started loading up all the hand sanitizers. There were 17 boxes. When we got home, me and him started labeling every box with names and numbers, names of police officers. You see, the only reason we drove down to Kansas City was because a few days before, my dad had sent out a mass email asking if any police officers needed hand sanitizer, and if they did, to email him back with how many they needed. The numbers we wrote down were the numbers of how many hand sanitized bottles the officers wanted. Most of the officers wanted at least 1 or 2. After we were done labeling, we personally drove to every station to drop off the bottles so the officers could get them before or after their shift. Challenge coins. For those of you who don't know what a challenge coin is, it is a little coin about the size of a dollar coin that usually has words and or pictures, symbols, a message, or something that associates you with a group. These started in the Vietnam War, when soldiers would find scrap pieces of metal and use dye or pins or anything they could find and write or draw symbols, messages, whatever. They would then trade these or send them home to their family. My dad loved these so much because they were all different. They all had all different messages, and no two were alike. Police work. My dad was a police officer for almost 15 years. In that 15 years, he became FOP president, had a daughter, 5 nieces, 1 nephew, gained 3 in-laws, and was a loving husband. Policing is a dangerous job. I was born into this line of work, so I knew that one day the doorbell could ring and it wouldn't be my dad. That day came May 3rd, Sunday at 6:32. My dad was a cop's cop. He was always making sure that every cop had what they needed. One day, I believe in 2018, my dad realized that most of the officers did not have a tourniquet holder to hold their tourniquet to their vest or belt, and that some of the newer officers didn't even have a tourniquet or know how to use one. So my dad, through the FOP, bought around 200 to 300 tourniquets with holders, so every officer could have one to put on their personal, to have one to go to work with them, and put one in their personal car, or just have an extra one while they were working. He believed that a gun, training, and a tourniquet is all a good cop needs. Now, thanks to him, every Overland Park officer has at least one tourniquet and holder. My dad also made sure that every officer had a working gun. By working, we meant that the gun worked and that the officer knew how to use it properly. We would often go on our own dime to take new or veteran officers to the shooting range to shoot their guns and many of our cool guns. He believed that a gun is a tool, not a weapon. The last thing my dad believed every cop should have is training. My whole family would often go to training classes on the gun basics, situational awareness, and many other topics. Along with my mom, my dad also taught many people how to shoot. He would teach women's safety classes or anything that he thought needed to be taught. My dad taught a training class where people could qualify to get their concealed and carry licenses in Kansas and Missouri. Sometimes we would go to other classes that other people were teaching and tell their students about legal defense plans, because my dad knew how the system worked on both sides, and he wanted everyone to be safe. I would always go with him to hear one line. At the very beginning, after he introduced himself, he would say, "I am not a salesman. I don't get any money if you sign up. I'm only telling you about this to make sure that after the hardest day of your life, you don't have to talk to me without a lawyer backing you, your money, and your future." I love this quote because it perfectly sums up my dad. He did not want an award, money, or a promotion. All he wanted was for his community, the good guys, to be backed by good guys. My father was not two-sided. He was not just a badge. He was a person. Who he was at work was the same person he was at home, on the road, or anywhere. Some things that my dad hated was traffic. Could not do it. It was really bad. My dad also hated spiders. Me and him have a thing for spiders. If there's a spider in the house, Mom gets it. We found a spider in my room just about a week ago. Actually, we just came from the park, and we were rolling around in the mud and the grass, and I laid down on my bed, and I felt something. First, I'm like, oh, it's a hair. It'll be fine. Then I felt it more. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I looked at my arm, and it was crawling on my arm, and it was black. I like to say that it was about a tarantula, but the real size was probably not as big as a dime. But it was big to me. So I jumped out of bed and ran out of my room and told my dad there's a spider. He looked at me and goes, "It must have bit you, because you're crazy if you think I'm getting it." So then I told Mom. But of course, when I went there, we couldn't find it. So we went and did just about a police search on my room. We took out all the drawers, threw all the clothes out, messed up my bed, did everything. It was a wreck. So I refused to sleep in my room that night. I slept outside on the couch. But in the morning when we found it, he helped me. He grabbed the guitar and stood behind me. He said, I don't think that's going to work, but he was backup, which is exactly what he was to everyone here. I want to make it very clear that my dad is not gone. He's just not here. His walking, talking body might not be here. But what made him Mike and what made him loving and selfless is still here. It is still watching over all of the police officers, all of the fire and EMS. So to all of the police officers, wherever you are, my dad is with you. My dad will be sitting next to you at roll call, and he will be watching you to make sure you know how to use your gun and that you have a tourniquet holder. To all of the firefighters, my dad once was you. He got his life back together, but he was one of you guys. So to all the firefighters, he will be with you. He will be making sure that you get that cat out of the tree. To all of the EMS workers, to all the EMS, doctors, or anyone, my dad is with you. He is in the operating room, and he is wherever you are. To all of the citizens of Overland Park, my dad is with you. He is watching over you and making sure that he is safe, making sure that you are safe. Because he risked his life and gave his life to protect you, and he would do it all over again. Thank you.